Hi everyone and welcome. This time I'll be looking at how to set up a private company and the basics of running one. There are well over 2 million companies in Australia and the vast majority of them are actually private companies, all proprietary limited. And these are run by IT contractors like myself or tradies and small business owners. Setting up your own company is not a complex or difficult thing. Most people think you might need a lawyer or an accountant to do it, but the reality is you can do it yourself and it'll probably only take you about an hour. This video will go through all of the steps and also have a look at the things that you need to do once your company is up and running. This video does not offer legal, financial, accounting or taxation advice and is specifically for an Australian audience. So, how does one go about actually setting up a company? There are a couple of options. First off, you can use one of the many online services that will offer to set the company up for you. It'll take a few minutes, it's pretty point and click, you enter a bit of information, they go off and they hook up to the government sites and they do all the setup for you and come back with a bit of paperwork to say it's all done, but you can expect to pay around $500 for the privilege, or you could do it yourself and it'll probably take you less than an hour. There are lots of resources available from the government to help you through the process. It's really not that scary, and this video will take you through the second option. All Australian companies are regulated by the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. For most private companies, the only interaction they'll ever have with ASIC is to complete an annual review, which is essentially a statement that the company is still solvent, and to pay an annual registration fee, which at the time of this video was around $300. ASIC also provides a great website which details how to actually go through registering a company, and the Australian government's also provided the business registration service, which will help you with your key business and taxation registrations. So, choosing a company name. First off, it needs to be unique. You can't copy anything that's currently registered in Australia. And according to ASIC, you cannot use words like bank, trust, royal or incorporated within your name. Also, make sure you don't infringe on current trademarks. And of course, it's helpful if you choose a name that's not going to get you sued by one of these gentlemen. Or indeed, all of them. Your private company must have at least one director, which is pretty much always you, and at least one shareholder or member, and that is most definitely you. The members must purchase a share in the company, which is typically $1 for the share, and this amount needs to be paid to the company itself. Now, one of the more arcane things you'll need for your new company is either a set of replaceable rules or a constitution, according to ASIC. But to be fair, in the 10 years that I've owned my own private company, no one has ever asked me to present these documents. The ASIC company registration website has a few details around this to help you with the contents and the wording of this document. Next up is your company registrations. You will need to register for an Australian company number and an Australian business number, and no, they're not the same thing. If your annual company turnover is more than $75,000, then you must register for GST. For less than $75,000, it is voluntary, but you really should do this anyway so that you can claim any GST that you pay on purchases back off of the government. And finally, you need to register for PAYG withholding. Even if you are the only person that the company is paying, you still must register for this. The Australian government offers a business registration service, and the website is really easy to use, so do go and check that out. Even though you may be the only director and the only shareholder in your private company, it is a legal entity in its own right, and you cannot deposit company income into your personal account. So for this, you'll need to open a business account in the company name with your bank or financial institution. Having a credit card is also useful for managing business expenses, so you can either open this in your business name, or you could use a personal card that's just used for business expenses and not personal expenses as well. You will also need to maintain your company books to track income, expenses, GST, pay-as-you-go withholding, and superannuation. Now, while I consider myself to be pretty tech savvy, I still like to keep my day-to-day accounting activities on a spreadsheet, but your accountant will much prefer that you use one of the many really excellent accounting software packages that are available. And as the Australian Taxation Office has implemented a one-touch payroll requirement, you pretty much need one of these software packages to help you with your mandatory reporting. So when you're an employee or even a PAYG contractor, those lovely people in payroll take care of all of the payroll shenanigans, but as a company owner, you're now the payroll officer, so congratulations. All of the steps and the calculations you need to go through can be confusing, so let's just break it down using a simple scenario. Say I've invoiced a client for some work and I want to convert that amount paid to the company into personal income that's paid to me. If you're using a spreadsheet to help with the calculations, you can check out the Excel formulas that I've added in this example to help you work out what you should be doing. Starting off with column A, this is the amount that you have included on your invoice to your client, and it's the amount that's been deposited to your bank account. Column B shows how to calculate the GST, where you're looking at a GST included total. And as the GST amount is currently set at 10%, you can just divide by 11. Now, check with the algebra teacher on this one, but this is a simple way of doing this calculation. Column C is just subtracting the GST amount from the total invoice amount, and I've added a rounding in here to 2 decimal places just to make sure I don't get fractions of a cent. In column D, we're calculating the compulsory super amount, and the same way that the GST is coming off of the gross amount in A, the super is coming off the gross amount in column C. Now, the super contribution amount is currently set at 10%, the same as GST, so we could have used the same calculation, but I've included the expanded form in here because the super is going to change rates over the upcoming years, and the expanded formula makes it a little easier to change. Column E is the gross personal income amount and is calculated after superannuation but before tax is taken out. Column F is the pay-as-you-go withholding tax amount, and this can be calculated by going to the ATO website, which has an individual tax calculator to help you out. And finally, in column G, we have the net amount of all of the GST and the super and the PAYG, which is the pay that goes into your personal bank account. Your private company is also required to make monthly or quarterly activity statement returns with the Australian Taxation Office. And this reports on total salaries that you've paid to all of your employees, including yourself, the PAYG instalments that you have withheld, all the GST amounts that you have collected on your invoices, and the GST that you've paid on purchases. From this, the ATO will calculate an amount that's a sum of all of these together, and it's likely that you'll need to make a payment to the ATO for the amounts that you've collected. There are various ways that you can do this. I happen to use BPay, but the ATO's got a number of ways that you can make payments. To access government services online, including getting access to the ATO Business Activity Statement, you will need these 3 things. First off, a MyGov login, and you possibly already have this if you're using your online tax return facilities or accessing Centrelink or other benefits. Next up, you'll need a MyGov ID, and no, it's not the same as MyGov. Yes, it should be. I don't know why it's not, but they're different. Once both of these are set up, you can link your company to your MyGov ID using the Relationship Authorization Manager. Logging into the ATO's business portal is its own kind of hell, but you will need to use this to do your online activity statements. It's a long, convoluted process, but let's give it a go. First off, you go to the online services website and you click the login button, and then that loads you up into the MyGov ID page. Now, before you go to this, you'll need the MyGov ID app on your phone. So you go to the website and you key in the email address that you've registered for MyGov ID, and then you go to your phone and fire up the MyGov app. The MyGov app requires a password. Once you've entered that, you get this login request screen. Now you need to go back to the MyGov ID web page that is displaying a 4-digit PIN. Go back to your phone, put that PIN into your phone and hit accept, and then your phone authorises you back to the MyGov website, which then logs you into the business portal. Congratulations, you're now logged on, and if you're anything like me, it would take you 3 or 4 goes before you work out this wonderful process. Now, as your company is registered for GST, whenever you issue an invoice to collect payment on goods or services that you are providing, you must make sure that your invoice is GST tax invoice compliant. To do that, you need to include these 4 things. Firstly, you must have your company name and its ABN. You must have the recipient's ABN if they in fact have an ABN. You must always have the words tax invoice on it, and you need to show the GST amount separately. You don't need to show the net of GST amount if you don't want to, but if you just have a gross amount, you must call out the separate GST amount. Do I need an accountant when I've got a private company? Well, yes and no. It's up to you on how much of this work you want to do yourself and how much you want to outsource to a professional. Some of the things that the accountant can help you with will be one-touch payroll, working out your superannuation contributions, doing GST and PAYG returns, doing your company tax returns each year, and accountants will also give you great accounting advice and help you with your dealings with the ATO and ASIC. If you are a PAYG employee and looking to start up a company, there are some business insurances that you may not be aware of. First off, there's professional indemnity insurance, which looks after things like you being sued for not being able to complete a job or completing it poorly. There is public liability insurance, which is your activities have caused injury or risk of injury to somebody. For all businesses, you also must have workers insurance. Now, this was previously called workers' compensation. It is a requirement, even if you are the only employee in your company, you must have workers insurance. And finally, you might want to think about personal income protection, which is not necessarily a company or business expense, but if you're generating your own income and you are unable to work due to illness or poor health, then personal income protection is certainly something to consider. When running a private company, it's also important to keep in mind your superannuation responsibilities to all your employees, including yourself as an employee. Now, in the past, if times were tough, you could get away with not paying yourself super and no one was really the wiser. But the ATO has now brought in one-touch payroll reporting, which means when you do your PAYG returns, they work out how much super you're meant to be paying, and if you don't pay that super to your super fund, the ATO will know about it. So, to keep yourself compliant, you need to make sure you calculate your superannuation amounts correctly, and you make your payments to your super fund either monthly or quarterly, depending on what your arrangement is with the fund. Super contributions are mandatory, so please keep them in mind. So, are you going to be adding to the more than 2 million proprietary limited companies that are operating in Australia? Let's hope so. Thanks for watching.